My name is Deanne, and at 68 years old, I never expected to be slapped across the face at my only son Adam's wedding. He has always been the light of my life since the day he was born. I had looked forward to his wedding day for years, imagining tears of joy, not humiliation. Instead, it became a nightmare when my new daughter-in-law demanded my apartment keys in front of everyone. The shock of her hand striking my face still burns in my memory. If you're watching this, please let me know where you're from in the comments, and hit that subscribe button if you want to hear how I turned this nightmare around. I've been a widow for 15 years now. My husband Thomas passed away after a brief but brutal battle with pancreatic cancer, leaving me to finish raising our son alone. We'd been high school sweethearts married for 30 years, and his absence left a hole in my heart that never quite healed. But life goes on, especially when you have a child who needs you. I spent 40 years teaching 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary in Boston. Those children kept me going through the darkest days after Thomas died. Adam was in college when his father passed studying business at the state university. We couldn't afford the fancy private schools, but he did well and made us proud. Our life wasn't lavish, but it was filled with love. Thomas had been a plumber, honest work that kept food on the table but didn't leave much for extras. We rented a small 2-bedroom apartment until Adam went to college. After Thomas died, the insurance money wasn't much, but combined with my savings, it allowed me to put a down payment on a modest 1-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just 800 square feet, but it was mine. I could walk to the grocery store, the library, and the park where I feed the ducks on Sunday mornings. Adam graduated, got a good job at a marketing firm, and started climbing the corporate ladder. He would visit me for Sunday dinners call regularly, and seemed to be thriving. Then 2 years ago, he met Stephanie at a corporate event. She came from money that was obvious from the start. Her father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships across New England, and her mother came from old Boston money. Stephanie herself was a corporate lawyer with a prestigious firm downtown. Tall, blonde, impeccably dressed in clothes that probably cost more than my monthly pension check. She was 4 years older than Adam, and had a confidence that bordered on arrogance. The first time Adam brought her to my apartment, I noticed the way her eyes scanned everything, lips slightly pursed. She complimented my quaint decor in a tone that made it clear it wasn't actually a compliment. When I served dinner on my everyday dishes, she asked if I had real china somewhere. I didn't, but I smiled and said these had sentimental value. As their relationship progressed, Stephanie would make comments about my cozy little place and how Adam deserved to upgrade his circumstances. She talked about neighborhoods where people like us should live, clearly not including me in that category. Adam would look uncomfortable but never contradicted her. I began to notice changes in my son. He visited less frequently. Our weekly Sunday dinners became monthly, then occasional. He started dressing differently, using phrases I'd never heard from him before. When I'd call, he often seemed distracted or would say he'd call back but wouldn't. When I asked about it, he'd say he was just busy with work and his new social circle. My apartment became increasingly important to me as I aged. I'd used my life savings and Thomas's insurance to buy it outright. It represented security for my retirement years. Without a mortgage, I could live modestly but comfortably on my teacher's pension. I'd planned to leave it to Adam someday, but that was meant to be long in the future after I was gone. 8 months after they met, Adam announced they were engaged. It seemed fast to me, but he was in love and I wanted him to be happy. Stephanie immediately took control of the wedding planning. It would be at the Harrington Estate, a venue I'd only seen in magazine spreads. The guest list grew to 130 people, most of whom I'd never met. I wasn't included in most of the decisions. When I asked if I could help with anything, Stephanie would say, "It's all taken care of," in a tone that made it clear my input wasn't needed. Adam would shrug and say, "Stephanie knows best about these things, Mom." Still, I tried to bond with my future daughter-in-law. I invited her to lunch, offered to show her family photos of Adam as a child, suggested we could go shopping together for my mother-of-the-groom outfit. She always had an excuse, always too busy with work or wedding planning. The wedding plans grew more elaborate and expensive. When Adam mentioned they were considering a string quartet for the ceremony, I offered to contribute. I'd been saving for years just in case Adam needed help with a house down payment someday. I wrote a check for $15,000, nearly half my remaining savings. Stephanie accepted it without much gratitude, simply saying, "This will help with the flowers." As the wedding approached, I began to feel an uneasiness I couldn't quite name. Adam dropped hints about changes after the wedding. Once he mentioned that Stephanie had big plans for their living situation. When I asked what that meant, he changed the subject. Despite my growing concerns, I focused on the positive. My son was getting married. He seemed happy, even if somewhat different. I told myself that all relationships require adjustment, and surely once they settled into married life, things would normalize. I never imagined what was actually coming. The morning of Adam's wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect June day. I woke early, too excited and nervous to sleep. I'd laid out my outfit the night before, a pale blue dress and jacket that had cost more than I'd ever spent on clothing for myself. $350 at Nordstrom, with shoes to match. My hair appointment was scheduled for 9, and the wedding would begin at 4 in the afternoon. While other mothers of the bride and groom were probably helping in the bridal suite, I got ready alone in my apartment. I'd asked if I should come early to help, but Stephanie had said everything was under control. Her mother, Laura, would be assisting her along with 6 bridesmaids. I took extra care with my makeup, trying to cover the signs of age that seemed more prominent in the mirror that morning. My hands trembled slightly as I fastened my pearl earrings, a gift from Thomas, on our 25th anniversary. I wished he could be there to see our boy married, to offer his steady presence beside me. I arrived at the Harrington estate 90 minutes early, thinking I might still be needed for something. The venue was breathtaking, an historic mansion with manicured gardens stretching in every direction. Luxury cars filled the parking area. I felt out of place in my modest sedan. Inside, staff and vendors bustled about with last-minute preparations. I introduced myself to the wedding coordinator, a young woman with a clipboard who seemed harried. "Oh, Mrs. Wilson, yes. The ceremony will be in the garden pavilion. Family seating is in the front row. Is there anything else?" Before I could respond, she was called away by someone else. I stood there unsure what to do with myself. I decided to find the bridal suite, thinking I could at least wish the bride well before the ceremony. Stephanie's mother, Laura, opened the door when I knocked. She was a slim, elegant woman in her early 60s with the same blonde hair as her daughter, though clearly maintained with expensive salon visits. "Oh, Deanne, you're early," she said, not inviting me in. I thought I might help with anything last minute I offered. "Everything's under control. Stephanie is having her photos taken with her bridesmaids. Perhaps you should just find your seat in the garden." The door closed, and I was alone in the hallway again. As I turned to leave, I overheard Stephanie's voice from inside. "Mom, did you tell her about the apartment situation yet?" I couldn't hear Laura's response, but something cold settled in my stomach. I made my way to the garden, finding a bench away from the gathering guests to collect my thoughts. When Adam finally appeared, he was surrounded by groomsmen I barely knew. He spotted me and came over, but his hug felt perfunctory, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Mom, you made it. You look nice." Of course I made it. I wouldn't miss my only son's wedding for anything. I searched his face. "Is everything okay, Adam? You seem tense." "Just wedding nerves." He glanced over his shoulder. "I should get back. The photographer wants some shots with the guys. I'll see you after the ceremony, okay?" He was gone before I could respond, hurrying back to his friends without making eye contact. The knot in my stomach tightened. The ceremony itself was beautiful but felt impersonal. I sat in the front row as the mother of the groom should, but I felt like a stranger. The vows were modern, talking about partnership and success rather than the love and devotion that Thomas and I had promised each other. I dabbed at my eyes anyway, watching my son commit his life to this woman who remained a mystery to me. As Adam and Stephanie were pronounced husband and wife, guests applauded. I clapped too, pushing down my misgivings. This was his choice and I would support him. That's what mothers do. The reception was held in the grand ballroom of the mansion. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and centerpieces of white roses and orchids adorned each table. I was seated at table 12, far from the head table where Adam and Stephanie sat with her parents and the wedding party. My table mates were distant relatives of Stephanie's and an elderly great-aunt who was hard of hearing. They made polite conversation but quickly turned to talk among themselves. From my seat, I could observe Stephanie's family, their designer clothes, their easy laughter, their obvious wealth and influence. Several guests were apparently state senators, doctors, and business leaders. I recognized a few faces from the local news. This was a world apart from the one where I'd raised Adam. The newlyweds made their rounds, greeting guests at each table. When they finally reached mine, Stephanie Eyre kissed my cheek while Adam gave me another quick hug. "Everything is beautiful," I said. "You both look so happy." "Thanks, Mom," Adam replied already, turning toward the next table. "We'll catch up later," Stephanie added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. As they moved away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Adam hadn't looked at me directly once. And what was that apartment situation Stephanie had mentioned? I watched them working the room, Stephanie laughing with the right people, Adam following her lead. My son, who once brought home stray kittens and gave his lunch to kids who forgot theirs, now seemed like someone I barely recognized. Yet I still saw glimpses of my boy and his nervous adjustment of his tie, the way he ran his hand through his hair when stressed habits from childhood. The dinner was served, speeches were made, and I sat through it all with a growing sense of isolation. No one had asked me if I wanted to say anything about my only child. No one had acknowledged my role in raising the man Adam had become. I was a spectator at my own son's wedding. As the dancing began, I sipped champagne and watched from the sidelines. The band played songs I didn't recognize, and the younger guests filled the dance floor. I spotted Adam dancing with Stephanie, their heads close together, her hand possessively on the back of his neck. I looked away, feeling like an intruder on a private moment. The reception was in full swing by 9 o'clock. The band played upbeat music, champagne flowed freely, and guests filled the dance floor. I had managed to enjoy some conversations with a few of Adam's old friends who remembered me from his school days. Their kind words about my son and my role in his life soothed some of the hurt I'd been feeling. I was standing near the dessert table, admiring the 5-tier wedding cake when Stephanie approached. She looked stunning in her designer gown, her makeup still perfect despite hours of celebrating. This was the first time all day she had sought me out. "Deanne, are you enjoying yourself?" she asked, her voice pleasant. She handed me a fresh glass of champagne. "Yes, everything is lovely," I replied, accepting the drink. "You've created a beautiful wedding. Only the best for Adam. He deserves it." She smiled. "And speaking of the best, I wanted to talk to you about our future plans." My heart beat a little faster. "Oh, what plans are those?" "Well, as you know, location is everything. Adam and I have been discussing our living situation, and we've decided your apartment would be perfect for us." I nearly choked on my champagne. "My apartment? But it's barely big enough for one person, let alone two." Stephanie waved her hand dismissively. "We'd renovate, of course. Knock down some walls, modernize everything. It's in the perfect neighborhood for our social circle. The building has such potential." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "Stephanie, that's my home. I've lived there for 15 years. Yes, and we appreciate that you've maintained it. But Adam agrees it makes sense for you to move somewhere more appropriate for your age. There's a lovely retirement community in Westbrook. We've already looked into it for you." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "You've been planning this, without discussing it with me." "Don't be dramatic, Deanne. It's the logical next step. You're getting older, living alone isn't safe, and Adam and I need to establish ourselves in the right neighborhood. Everyone benefits." Her tone was matter of fact, as if discussing a business transaction rather than uprooting my life. "I'm only 68. I'm perfectly capable of living independently." I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "And that apartment is my financial security. I own it outright." Stephanie's pleasant expression faltered slightly. "That's why it's perfect. No mortgage means we can invest more in renovations. We'd handle all the details of your move, of course." A few nearby guests had begun to notice our conversation. I lowered my voice. Stephanie, I'm sorry, but my apartment isn't available. It's my home and I have no intention of moving. Her eyes narrowed, the facade of friendliness dropping completely. That's not what Adam led me to believe. Then there's been a misunderstanding, I said firmly. No, I don't think there has been. Her voice took on a harder edge. Adam promised me we'd have that apartment. It was part of our plans from the beginning. People were definitely watching now. I could see confusion and curiosity on their faces. I tried to keep my voice steady. I never agreed to any such thing, and I never would. That apartment represents my life's work and savings. Stephanie stepped closer, her voice low but intense. Listen to me carefully. Adam and I are starting our life together, and we've made decisions about our future. Your apartment is part of that future. Don't make this difficult. I'm not making anything difficult. I'm simply stating that my home is not available. I stood my ground, though my hands were shaking. Do you have any idea who my family is? She hissed. My father could buy your entire building without blinking. You don't want to cross me. Is that a threat? I asked, genuinely shocked. It's reality. Now I've been patient. We've included you in our special day despite your limitations. The least you could do is be supportive of our plans. A small crowd had gathered at a discreet distance, pretending not to listen, but clearly interested in the tension between us. I could see Adam across the room, watching, but not approaching. Stephanie, I think we should discuss this another time, I suggested, trying to diffuse the situation. No, I want this settled now. She held out her hand. Give me your keys. We'll have movers pack your things next week. I stared at her outstretched hand in disbelief. Absolutely not. Give me the keys, she repeated, her voice rising. It's what Adam wants. If that's true, he can tell me himself. I looked past her to where my son stood still, not intervening. Stephanie's face flushed with anger. You selfish old woman. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. We invited you here, didn't we? Let you be part of this day. And this is how you repay us, by being difficult about a property you can't maintain much longer anyway. I took a deep breath. Stephanie, that apartment is my home and my security. The answer is no. Her eyes flashed. Give me those keys now, or you'll regret it. Are you threatening me at your own wedding? I couldn't believe this was happening. Last chance, Deanne. Keys. Now. She held out her hand again, palm-up fingers wiggling impatiently. No, I said firmly. What happened next seems like slow motion in my memory. Stephanie's face contorted with rage. Her arm swung back, and then forward, her open palm connecting with my cheek with a crack that seemed to echo in the sudden silence that fell over the nearby guests. The physical pain was sharp and immediate, but the humiliation burned hotter. I stood there, hand to my stinging cheek, tears welling in my eyes, aware that at least 20 people had witnessed what just happened. Stephanie leaned in, close her voice, a venomous whisper. You've just ruined everything. I looked past her to Adam, who had finally started moving toward us, shock on his face. But he stopped several feet away, his eyes darting between his new wife and me, clearly torn and uncertain. In that moment, my heart broke. Not from the slap, not from Stephanie's cruelty, but from my son's hesitation. The boy I'd raised, the man I thought I knew, stood paralyzed, unwilling or unable to defend his mother. With as much dignity as I could muster, I turned and walked toward the exit. 130 pairs of eyes felt like they were boring into my back. The whispers had already started. I didn't run, though I wanted to. I walked steadily, head high, tears threatening but not falling. As I reached the door, I heard Adam finally call Mom, wait. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. I needed air, space, and time to process what had just happened. The wedding of my dreams had become a nightmare I couldn't have imagined. Sitting alone in my car in the parking lot, I finally let the tears come. My cheek still stung from Stephanie's slap, but the pain in my heart was far worse. I pressed a tissue to my eyes, careful not to smudge my makeup. Even now, some part of me didn't want to look like the mess I felt like. How had we come to this point? Where was the little boy who once made me a construction paper card that said, "World's Greatest Mom"? The teenager who defended me when a store clerk was rude? The young man who promised to always take care of me after his father died? I remembered the countless sacrifices Thomas and I had made for Adam. The second job I took teaching summer school to afford his braces. The meals I'd skipped so he could have new sneakers for basketball. The vacations we never took because college savings came first. After Thomas died, things got even tighter. I sold our second car. I moved us to a smaller rental apartment. I wore the same winter coat for 10 years. All so Adam could finish college without crushing debt, so he could have opportunities we never had. The apartment Stephanie now demanded had been my dream for years. I'd rented all my adult life until Adam's senior year of college, when I combined my savings with Thomas's life insurance and bought it. It wasn't fancy, only one bedroom, one bathroom, a small living room, and kitchen. But it was mine. I'd never owned property before. The day I signed those papers was one of the proudest of my life. I remembered how Adam had helped me move in carrying boxes and assembling a new bookshelf. "One day I'll buy you a mansion, Mom," he'd said, "with a garden and one of those fancy kitchens you see on TV. The irony wasn't lost on me. Instead of buying me a mansion, he now wanted to take my modest home. Sitting in my car, I realized I'd enabled this. For years, I'd surrendered my boundaries to keep peace. When Adam missed Sunday dinners for Stephanie's events, I said it was fine. When he forgot my birthday because they were on a weekend trip, I told him not to worry about it. When Stephanie made dismissive comments about my home, my clothes, my life, I smiled and changed the subject. Always accommodating, always understanding, always putting Adam's happiness before my own comfort. And where had it led? To this moment with my cheek burning from a slap, and my son unable to choose between his mother and his wife. "This stops today," I whispered to my reflection in the rear-view mirror. My hands trembled as I pulled my phone from my purse. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed. Patrick Sullivan had been a friend for many years. We'd taught at the same school until he left education to practice law. He'd specialized in elder law and estate planning before retiring 3 years ago. He'd helped me set up my will and a small trust after Thomas died. More importantly, he'd asked me to dinner several times in recent years. I'd always declined, not ready for companionship after Thomas. But we'd remained friends, meeting occasionally for coffee or lunch. The phone rang 4 times before he answered. "Deanne, this is a surprise. Isn't today Adam's wedding?" My voice broke as I tried to respond. "Patrick, I need help." "What's wrong? Are you okay?" His concern was immediate. Through tears, I explained what had happened, the confrontation, the slap, Adam's reaction, all of it. Patrick listened without interrupting. "I don't know what to do," I finished. "She wants my home, Patrick. And Adam," he just stood there. "Where are you now?" he asked, his voice calm, but with an edge of anger. "In my car outside the reception." "Stay there. I'm coming to you. 20 minutes tops." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. No one treats my friend this way. I'll be there soon." After we hung up, I sat in silence, processing. What was I doing, calling a friend to come to my son's wedding, creating more drama on what should be Adam's special day? Was I overreacting? No, I realized. I wasn't creating drama. I was finally responding appropriately to it. I wasn't overreacting. I'd been underreacting for years. I fixed my makeup, reapplied lipstick, and took several deep breaths. Whatever happened next, I would face it with dignity. I'd spent a lifetime putting others first. Today I needed to stand up for myself. 15 minutes later, Patrick's car pulled into the space beside mine. He was dressed in a suit, as if he'd anticipated needing to look formal. At 71, Patrick still cut an impressive figure, tall, fit, with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. He opened my car door. "Are you sure you want to go back in there? We could just leave, talk about this tomorrow." I shook my head. "No. If I leave now, she wins. And Adam needs to understand there are consequences for allowing someone to treat me this way. Patrick offered his arm. Then let's do this right. As we walked back toward the grand entrance of the Harrington estate, I felt a strange calm settle over me. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I wasn't concerned about keeping the peace or protecting others' feelings at my expense. I was simply standing up for what was right. "Thank you for coming," I said quietly. "I've been waiting for your call for years, Deanne. Though I'll admit this isn't quite what I had in mind." His slight smile helped steady my nerves. At the entrance, I paused. "I don't want to ruin Adam's wedding." "You aren't ruining anything," Patrick assured me. "You're teaching him a valuable lesson about respect. Sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is hold their child accountable." I nodded, squared my shoulders, and walked back into the reception hall, Patrick's steady presence beside me. When we re-entered the reception hall, the atmosphere had noticeably shifted. The band was playing again, but the energy had changed. Small groups of guests huddled in conversation, many glancing our way as we entered. I spotted Stephanie and her parents in an intense discussion in a corner. Stephanie was gesturing animatedly, her father looking stern, her mother clearly trying to calm the situation. Adam looked pale and uncomfortable. As we approached, their conversation halted abruptly. Stephanie's eyes widened when she saw I wasn't alone. "Mom," Adam began, "we need to talk about what happened." "Yes, we do," I agreed calmly. "Who is this?" Stephanie demanded, looking Patrick up and down. "This is Patrick Sullivan, a dear friend." I turned to him. "Patrick, this is my son Adam, his new wife Stephanie, and her parents Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery." Patrick extended his hand to Adam. "Congratulations on your marriage." His tone was cordial but cool. Adam shook his hand tentatively. Stephanie ignored the offered handshake. "Why did you bring a stranger to our wedding?" "Patrick isn't just a friend," I explained. "He's also an attorney who specialized in elder law and estate planning before retirement. He helped me set up the trust that holds my apartment." The word trust caused an immediate reaction. Stephanie's face paled slightly, while her father's eyebrows rose with interest. "Trust? What trust?" Adam asked, confusion evident. Patrick spoke, his voice carrying the authority of his years in law. "After your father passed, Adam, your mother wisely established a small trust for her assets, including her apartment. I helped her set it up to protect her financial security in her later years." Stephanie's father stepped forward. "I'm James Montgomery. What exactly does this trust entail?" "It's quite straightforward," Patrick explained. "The apartment is held in trust for Deanne's benefit during her lifetime. She has complete control over it as the trustee. But it cannot be sold or transferred without meeting specific conditions designed to protect her interests." "That's ridiculous," Stephanie cut in. "She can change that if she wants to." "Actually, it's irrevocable," Patrick corrected. "That was a deliberate choice to protect against exactly this type of situation. Undue influence or pressure to surrender assets needed for retirement security." Adam looked bewildered. "Mom, why didn't you tell me about this?" "You never asked, Adam. And frankly, my financial arrangements weren't relevant until someone tried to take my home." Patrick reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. I took the liberty of bringing something else that might interest everyone. "Before coming here, I made a quick stop at my home office." He unfolded what appeared to be an email printout. 3 months ago, someone inquired with Anderson Real Estate about the market value of your mother's apartment and potential renovation costs. They specifically asked about converting a seniors unit to a modern space suitable for a professional couple. The inquiry came from an S. Wilson. Gasps and murmurs spread through the growing crowd of guests who had gathered at a respectful distance but were clearly listening. "That's a common name," Stephanie said quickly. "Means nothing." Perhaps Patrick conceded. But there's more. 2 weeks later, the same person contacted Westbrook Retirement Village about residency requirements and asked specifically about moving an elderly parent there within the next 2 months, potentially against their wishes. They inquired about legal requirements and if the facility could help convince a stubborn parent it was time to move. Adam turned to Stephanie, shock on his face. You did this. Without telling me. I was exploring options for our future, she defended. You said your mother would be reasonable. I said she might consider selling someday, not that we'd force her out right after the wedding. Adam's voice rose. Patrick continued calmly. There's also a record of inquiries to a lawyer specializing in competency hearings. The questions concerned how to demonstrate that an older person might not be capable of managing their own affairs despite appearing functional. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the band seemed to have paused between songs. You were planning to declare me incompetent? I asked, my voice barely audible. Stephanie's mother grabbed her arm. Stephanie, tell me you didn't. It was just research, Stephanie insisted. Preparation in case she became difficult. Difficult, I repeated. Is that what I am for wanting to keep my own home? Adam looked devastated. I had no idea about any of this. Steph told me you had mentioned downsizing, that you were thinking about a retirement community anyway. I never said any such thing, I told him, and you never asked me directly. Stephanie's father intervened. Perhaps we can discuss this privately. I'm sure we can come to some arrangement that satisfies everyone. There's nothing to arrange, Patrick stated firmly. Deanne's home is legally protected. She has no desire to sell it or move. And after the events of tonight, I would strongly advise against any further pressure on this matter. Are you threatening us? Stephanie's voice was incredulous. Not at all, Patrick replied. I'm simply making the legal situation clear and documenting that Mrs. Montgomery physically assaulted Deanne in front of witnesses, should that become relevant. A murmur went through the watching guests. Stephanie's mother closed her eyes briefly, clearly mortified. You were going to try to take my mom's house. One of Adam's groomsmen spoke up from the crowd. Dude, that's messed up. Adam looked around, seemingly realizing for the first time how many people were watching, how many had witnessed his new wife's behavior and now her schemes. Stephanie tried to regain control. This man has no idea what he's talking about. He's just some friend of Deanne's trying to cause trouble at our wedding. Actually, said an older gentleman stepping forward from the crowd. I know Patrick Sullivan quite well. He was one of Boston's most respected elder law attorneys before retirement. If he says the apartment is protected by an irrevocable trust, you can take that to the bank. Stephanie's facade was crumbling by the second. Her perfectly planned wedding, her carefully cultivated image, her secret plans for our future all exposed. And judging by the expressions on the faces around us, the court of public opinion had already reached its verdict. Adam stood in the middle, looking from his new wife to me, and back again, the full reality of the situation finally dawning on him. In his eyes, I could see the boy I raised beginning to re-emerge from behind the mask he'd worn these past 2 years. The revelation of Stephanie's schemes had thrown the reception into chaos. Her carefully constructed image had shattered, and she was not handling it well. This is all your fault, she snapped at Adam. You said this would be easy. You promised me that apartment. Adam flinched as if she'd struck him too. I never said that. I said I'd talk to my mom about possibly selling someday when she was ready. I looked at my son, keeping my voice gentle but firm. Adam, did you know about her plans? About the lawyer, the retirement home, all of it? He hesitated, then admitted, I knew she was looking into retirement communities. She said it would be better for you, safer. But I didn't know about the lawyer or trying to have you declared incompetent. I swear, Mom. Stephanie's father tried to salvage the situation. Let's all calm down. I'm sure we can work something out that benefits everyone. What if we purchased a new condo for Deanne? Something more modern with better security? Patrick shook his head. This isn't a negotiation, Mr. Montgomery. Deanne isn't interested in selling her home or moving, regardless of the inducements offered. Everyone has a price, James Montgomery insisted. Not everyone, I said quietly. Some things aren't for sale. Stephanie's mother tugged at her husband's sleeve. James, enough. You're making things worse. I took a deep breath and addressed the Montgomerys directly. I understand you want the best for your daughter. So do I for my son. But what happened here today, the demands, the slap, the scheming behind my back, those aren't the actions of someone who truly loves and respects my son or his family. How dare you question my love for Adam? Stephanie's voice rose dangerously. Love without respect isn't really love at all, I said. It's possession. It's control. My husband Thomas and I had our struggles like any couple, but we always treated each other with respect. We never tried to separate each other from family or take what wasn't freely given. Several of the older guests nodded in agreement. I could see Adam absorbing my words, conflict evident on his face. Adam, I continued, turning to my son, I've always wanted your happiness. I've supported your choices even when I had reservations. But I can't support this. I can't pretend it's okay for someone to treat me this way, even your wife. Especially your wife. She's just stressed, Adam said weakly. The wedding pressure. Stop making excuses for me, Stephanie snapped. I'm not sorry. That apartment is perfect for us, and she's being selfish holding on to it when she could just move somewhere more appropriate for her age. The ugliness of her attitude was now fully exposed, and Adam couldn't look away anymore. Steph, this is my mother you're talking about. And I'm your wife now, she countered. You need to decide where your loyalty lies. Her or me. The ultimatum hung in the air. I saw the panic in Adam's eyes as he realized he was being forced to choose publicly at his own wedding. You don't have to decide right now, I told him gently. But I am leaving. I won't stay where I'm not respected. Patrick offered his arm again, and I took it, preparing to depart with dignity. Wait, Adam called. Don't go like this. But Stephanie wasn't finished. If you walk out of here with her, Adam, don't bother coming home. I mean it. It's her or me right now. The guests' shock was palpable. Even Stephanie's parents looked horrified at their daughter's behavior. Adam stood frozen, torn between the two women in his life, the weight of the moment crushing him. I'm sorry, son, I said softly. I love you, but I can't stay. Patrick and I walked slowly toward the exit. I heard footsteps behind us and turned to see Adam following, his expression anguished. Mom, please just wait. Let's talk about this. We stepped outside into the cool evening air. The contrast between the tense atmosphere inside and the peaceful garden was stark. Adam, I think you need some time to think, I told him. What happened tonight was inexcusable. You stood by while your wife assaulted me and tried to bully me out of my home. I didn't know what to do, he admitted, his voice breaking. Everything happened so fast. Life often works that way, Patrick interjected. Character is revealed in those moments when we don't have time to think, only to react. Adam looked at Patrick, then back at me. Who is this guy to you, Mom? A true friend, I answered honestly. Someone who drops everything to help when needed. Someone who stands up for what's right. The implied comparison wasn't lost on Adam. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. I messed up, he admitted. But I don't know how to fix this. You start by recognizing there's a problem, I told him. The Adam I raised would never allow anyone to treat people the way Stephanie treated me tonight. I love her, he said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. Do you? Or do you love who you thought she was? Who she pretended to be until she had that ring on her finger? From the doorway, Stephanie's voice cut through the night. Adam, get back in here now or we're done. He flinched at her tone, perhaps hearing it clearly for the first time. I need to figure this out, he said. Yes, you do. I reached out and straightened his bow tie, a motherly gesture from simpler times. But not tonight. Go back to your wedding. Think about what kind of man, what kind of husband you want to be. And when you're ready to talk, really talk, you know where to find me. Are you going to be okay? He asked, sounding like my son again, not Stephanie's puppet. I'm going to be fine, I assured him. Stronger than I've been in a long time, actually. Patrick helped me into his car. As we drove away, I saw Adam in the rearview mirror, standing alone in the garden, looking lost. My heart broke for him, but I knew this was a journey he needed to make on his own. The drive back to my apartment was quiet. Patrick respected my need for silence for processing. When we arrived, he walked me to my door. "Would you like me to come in? Make you some tea," he offered. "Not tonight," I declined gently. "But thank you. For everything. Call me tomorrow," he said. "Or whenever you're ready." Inside my small, modest apartment, I looked around with new eyes. The furniture wasn't expensive, the decor wasn't fashionable, but every item told a story of my life. The bookshelf Adam had assembled, the quilt Thomas's mother had made for our wedding, the collection of students' thank you cards from 40 years of teaching. This wasn't just an apartment in a desirable neighborhood. It was my sanctuary, my history, my home. For the first time since the confrontation, I allowed myself to fully feel everything: the shock, the hurt, the anger, the disappointment. But underneath it all was something unexpected: strength. I had faced one of my worst fears: public humiliation, family conflict, and I had survived. More than survived, I had stood my ground. The tears came then, a complex mixture of grief for what was lost and relief for what was found. I cried for the wedding that should have been, for the relationship with my son that would never be the same, for the grandchildren who might never know me. But I also cried with a strange sense of liberation. After decades of putting everyone else first, I had finally stood up for myself. The weeks following Adam's wedding were both painful and transformative. I moved through my days in a fog at first, replaying the confrontation, wondering if I could have handled things differently. The mother in me worried constantly about Adam. Was he okay? Did he regret his marriage already? Was he angry with me? He called 3 days after the wedding, his voice subdued. "Mom, I just wanted to check if you're all right." "I'm managing," I told him truthfully. "How are you?" "Confused. Stephanie and we're working through some things." He sounded exhausted. "She wants to apologize but needs some time." I doubted the sincerity of that, but kept it to myself. "Take whatever time you need, Adam. I'm not going anywhere. Can we get together soon, talk this through?" "Not yet," I said gently. "I think we both need space to process what happened. Real healing can't be rushed." He didn't like that answer. He wanted quick forgiveness, an easy fix, but I held firm. For perhaps the first time, I was prioritizing my own emotional health above his comfort. Support came from unexpected places. Former students reached out when news of the incident spread through social networks. Colleagues from my teaching days appeared on my doorstep with casseroles and concern. My neighbor, Martha, usually reserved, invited me for coffee and shared her own story of standing up to a bullying daughter-in-law. Patrick called daily at first, then began dropping by with books he thought I'd enjoy or interesting teas he'd discovered. His friendship became a cornerstone of my healing process, his quiet strength, a reminder that there were good men in the world. 3 weeks after the wedding, I received a formal letter from a lawyer representing Stephanie. She was filing for an annulment, claiming Adam had misrepresented his financial situation. The lawyer delicately suggested that if I were willing to sell my apartment to the couple as a settlement, the proceedings could be less adversarial. I showed the letter to Patrick during one of our now regular lunch dates. "Unbelievable," he said after reading it. "She's still trying to get your apartment." "Some people don't give up easily," I observed. "What will you do?" "Nothing," I replied. "Their marriage and its dissolution are their business. My apartment remains mine." Patrick smiled. "You've changed, Deanne. For the better, I hope." "Definitely for the better. You always had this strength. You just needed to remember it." The annulment news hit Adam hard. He called in tears one evening, his voice slurred slightly, suggesting he'd been drinking. "She never loved me, Mom. She just wanted to use me to get to you to get the apartment. How did I not see it?" My heart ached for him, but I knew he needed to work through this himself. "We often see what we want to see in people we love, Adam. Don't be too hard on yourself." "I should have defended you. When she slapped you, I should have done something." "Yes, you should have," I agreed, not sugarcoating it. "But you can learn from that. We both can." As summer turned to fall, I found myself emerging from grief into a new chapter of life. I joined a book club at the library, something I'd always wanted to do but never made time for. I volunteered teaching literacy to adults 2 mornings a week. I started walking in the park daily, where I often ran into Patrick coincidentally. I redecorated my apartment, painting the living room, the soft blue I'd always wanted but had been too practical to try. I replaced the worn sofa, bought new curtains, and splurged on a beautiful reading lamp. This space was truly mine, and for the first time I was designing it solely for my pleasure. 3 months after the wedding, Adam asked to meet for coffee. He looked different, thinner, more serious, but somehow more like himself than he had in the 2 years with Stephanie. "I've been seeing a therapist," he told me right away, "trying to understand how I let things get so out of hand." "That takes courage," I said, genuinely proud. "I'm starting to see patterns, Mom. How I always sought approval, how easy it was for Stephanie to manipulate that need, and how I've taken you for granted for years." "We all have patterns," I acknowledged. "I've been working on mine too, my need to be needed, to sacrifice for others even when it's not healthy." We talked for 2 hours, really talked in a way we hadn't since he was in college. No quick fixes, no easy forgiveness, but the beginning of a new, more honest relationship. "I miss Sunday dinners," he admitted as we prepared to leave. "I do too. But if we start again, things need to be different. Equal, respectful." "I'd like that," he said. As months passed, Adam and I rebuilt our relationship on stronger foundations. He finalized his annulment and moved into a small apartment across town. He came for dinner every other Sunday, and we established new traditions. Sometimes Patrick joined us, his presence adding warmth to our gathering. My apartment remained my sanctuary, but I no longer defined myself by it or any other possession. The experience had taught me that true security comes not from things but from self-respect and healthy boundaries. The wisdom I gained through this painful journey changed me profoundly. I learned that love without respect isn't really love at all. That standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. That it's never too late to reclaim your power and rebuild relationships on healthier terms. Today, as I look back on that wedding day confrontation, I see it not as a disaster but as a turning point. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it exposed difficult truths. But without that moment, without Stephanie's slap, and demands, I might never have found my voice. Adam might never have recognized his patterns. We might have continued in our dysfunctional dynamic for years. Sometimes the most painful moments lead to the most profound growth. Sometimes what feels like an ending is really a beginning. If you're watching this and facing your own difficult family situation, remember that it's never too late to stand up for yourself with dignity. Setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away, it's about teaching them how to treat you. Have you ever had to make a difficult stand for your own well-being? Share your experience in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to this chapter of my life. And remember, when life knocks you down, it's also giving you the opportunity to rise stronger than before.